This might be the end for the useless daughter-in-law. I came home early and heard my mother-in-law's strangely happy voice. Soon after, I heard my husband's disgusted laughter. I quietly went into the kitchen where they were. In the dark hallway, I watched them with held breath. Tonight's the night, Mom. Tomorrow's the big day for her. I wonder how Mr. Abushi will feel after this. I can't wait, my mother-in-law said with a smirk, making a nasty face. She was putting something she had in her head into a pot. I was shocked but also determined. If that's what you're going to do, I dare you to take the bait. They're forgetting the most important thing. This is what I do best, so I'm looking forward to it. My name is Pamela. I've been married for 3 years now and I'm a housewife. Our story is a bit different. It all started when my husband, Luke, fell in love with me while I was on stage. I was a stage actress before we got married. I was quite successful in my acting career. I was busy, but I loved it more than anything. I enjoyed the excitement of being on stage every day. It felt fun and rewarding, and I knew it was my calling. I even had some fans, and one of them was Luke. Luke came to see my plays every day with great enthusiasm. Since he was a friend of someone else in the theater company, we started going out to dinner and eventually began a relationship that led to marriage. Luke was incredibly kind and happy just to be with me, probably because he had always been a fan. He did everything for me, and his love was so strong that it sometimes surprised me. When he cried and said, "I do this because I love you, Pam, please understand," I would forgive him. I guess that's the weakness of love. Our relationship was going well, and I thought our marriage would work out. But married life turned out to be different from what I expected. What bothered me was my mother-in-law. She didn't like that I was acting. She said that if I was going to be a wife, I had to give up acting and focus on housework. Most importantly, she insisted that a wife's main job was to have children. She even forced me to quit the theater company. Even Luke, who was usually so nice, seemed to put his mother before me. When she was involved, he would hide my scripts so I couldn't go to work. He wouldn't let me into the house if I was late for practice and would interfere with my work. I tried talking to Luke and asking him to let me continue working, but he wouldn't listen. It was frustrating, but I knew that if I kept pushing, it would cause problems for the theater company. In the end, I decided to focus on being a housewife first because my mother-in-law kept insisting that I needed to have a child. So I agreed to concentrate on housework until we had a child, planning to return to work once the child was a bit older. I didn't want to have a child with Luke, but once I became a housewife, my mother-in-law's sarcasm only got worse. Our apartment was just a 20-minute drive from her house. Since her husband had passed away a few years ago, she came over every day. She would eat leftovers without asking, complain about the food being too seasoned, and rummage through things without permission, always finding something to complain about. When I was a stage actress, going to work was my joy. Now that I'm a housewife, I can't find any peace. My mother-in-law interferes with everything I do, from morning till night, and complains about it all. The stress is overwhelming. Even Luke, who used to be so kind, became cold towards me. He would say things like, "You're a useless wife. All you do is stay home and be quiet. Don't talk back. Just do the housework." He started treating me just like his mother did. On top of that, once my mother-in-law found out I made good money before we were married, she began asking me for money regularly. She would say things like, "You have money, but don't spend it. Money is only worth something when you spend it." When I refused to give her money, she would yell at me, and things would get out of hand. I had no choice but to give her money from my savings, which made me angry because she was wasting it. After a year of marriage, the amount of money I gave her had grown quite large. Around the same time, I discovered messages on Luke's phone showing that he was having an affair with a coworker. In one of the messages I found, Luke's lover said, "Pamela is dumb, so she'll never notice the affair." Luke was making fun of me. This made me seriously consider getting a divorce. Luckily, Luke and I didn't have any children, so if we were going to divorce, now would be the time. But I felt a bit lost because I was supposed to play a supporting role at the theater company. I hadn't told Luke or my mother-in-law about it. Even after getting married, I continued to see my theater friends and stay involved with the troupe. It was important for me to keep my spirits up. One of the troupe members, who had been listening to my complaints, asked if I wanted to take a small role in a show without telling anyone. I wanted to be on stage so badly that I couldn't resist. I didn't care if it was a minor role. I just wanted to perform again. I agreed right away. However, if I divorced now, it might interfere with my rehearsals. Since this was my first time back on stage in a long time, I wanted to make it a success. So I decided to wait until after the show to get divorced. The show was only a few days away. One day, as I was cooking dinner, my mother-in-law came up to me with a demanding look in her eyes. "Hey Pamela, what's this?" My mother-in-law demanded, holding up flyers and scripts. "Where did you get these?" she asked. "They're from your bag," she said, showing a flyer for a volunteer performance and a script for a play. "You can't just go through someone's things without asking," I protested. "Shut up. It doesn't matter now. You said you quit your job, so explain this," she snapped. "Yes, I lied about working part-time and went to practice," I admitted. "Maybe I shouldn't have tried to perform behind your back, but that doesn't mean it's okay to invade my privacy." As usual, my mother-in-law ranted, and I was so frustrated that I shouted, "So what? What's wrong with acting?" "Yes, I went to stage practice secretly. I lied about the part-time job." "So what? You admit it. You're just an amateur stage actor. It's pathetic that you cling to the stage like that," she said, making me furious. I was so angry that I felt dizzy and my vision seemed red. "I'm sorry I lied, but what's wrong with doing what I love?" I said, surprising her with my strong response. Despite her reaction, I continued with my work. Performing on stage has been my passion for my whole life. "Thanks to this job, I even met your son," I told my mother-in-law. "And yet, you've unfairly taken away my work and bully me every day. I can't take it anymore. Why can't I at least take a break and do what I love? I've been practicing for months for this play and I've done all the chores properly. You and Luke haven't noticed until now. So what's wrong with that? The show is the day after tomorrow, and no matter what you say, I'm going on stage." I said all this in one breath. My mother-in-law just stared at me, speechless. For me, the stage is my reason for living and helps relieve my stress. Do you know that stress is bad for your health? Maybe the reason I can't have children is because of the stress of living with you every day, I added. My mother-in-law looked frustrated but left without saying anything. I felt relieved after finally expressing everything I had been holding in. The next day, I went to practice and was in better shape than usual, probably because I had let go of so much stress. I came home early because it was the day before the show. When I walked in, I found Luke and my mother-in-law talking in the kitchen. Their conversation seemed so absurd that they didn't even notice me. Then I heard my mother-in-law say, "This will definitely be the end of Pamela's career as an actor." My heart sank when I heard those words. What the hell does that mean? I thought, listening to their conversation. I noticed they were working on something. I quietly observed from a distance and saw that my mother-in-law was grinding nuts in a blender and mixing them into the soup. I'm allergic to nuts, and even a small amount can cause itching in my mouth and throat, making it hard to speak. I told Luke about my allergy when we were dating. Could they be adding nuts to make sure I can't go on stage tomorrow? I quickly took out my voice recorder, which I had brought for practice, and started recording. This is finally going to happen tonight. This should teach her a lesson. She got so cocky talking back to me, I heard my mother-in-law say. Luke replied, "Yeah, if she had just listened to you, Mom, none of this would have happened." "Oh well, she's a hopeless wife. She doesn't learn until we teach her." I was in shock hearing Luke's words. I knew my mother-in-law hated me, but I couldn't believe that Luke felt the same way. I had always believed in him, no matter what. Feeling lost, I ended up at the rehearsal hall, where several troupe members were practicing. "Hey Pamela, what are you doing here? I thought you were going home earlier," one of them asked. "Hey, is something wrong? Are you okay? You can tell me," one of the troupe members said. I ended up telling them everything I had seen. They were shocked but listened carefully. "This is terrible. Hey Pam, what do you think about getting back at them?" one of them asked. I listened to their plan and decided to go along with it. I was determined to show Luke and my mother-in-law how serious I was. When I got home a little later, I made a point to announce, "I'm home," more loudly than usual. My mother-in-law immediately came over with a sweet tone and said, "Pamela, you're home. I'm sorry about yesterday. I didn't realize I was too harsh. I'm very sorry. Can you forgive me? I thought you might be tired from practice, so I made you a meal. Look, you need to eat well and prepare for tomorrow. Come on, eat up." She placed the soup I had seen earlier on the dining room table, which I knew was full of ground nuts. I sat down quietly and said, "Thank you for your thoughtfulness. The food looks delicious." Luke and my mother-in-law watched me with smiles I had never seen before. To be honest, they looked disgusting to me. I pretended to eat the soup and swallowed. Then I stopped moving, dropped my spoon, held my hands to my throat, and rolled out of my chair, acting like I was in agony. I never thought my acting skills would be useful in a situation like this. Luke rushed over with a glass of water, panicking as he saw my suffering. "Oh no, are you okay? Drink some water. Can you manage it?" he asked frantically. I heard Luke crying and my mother-in-law was panicking around me. "Oh my God, I didn't mean for this to happen. I just wanted you to miss the show tomorrow. I only put a little nuts in the soup, just a little," she said. Luke shouted, "Mom, not now. Call an ambulance." No, my mother-in-law replied. "Think about what the neighbors will say if we get in trouble with the police. It was supposed to be a prank. What should we do?" I listened to them and then stopped pretending to be in pain. I stood up, fixing my messy hair as I looked at Luke and said, "Pamela, are you all right?" "Yes, I'm fine," I said. "It was just an act. You know I'm an actress." "What? What are you surprised about?" I added. "I'm an actress. I was just acting." My mother-in-law's face turned red. "Pamela, how dare you? Do you think you can make fun of people like this?" "It's you and your son who are making fun of me," I replied. "You put nuts in my food to keep me from performing tomorrow. Don't try to play dumb with me. I have proof." I pulled out a voice recorder from my bag, showing the recording screen. "And I have witnesses," I said. The members of the theater troupe appeared from behind the door. They had followed me home because they thought I might need witnesses. Luke and my mother-in-law stared at the troupe members, frozen in shock. "This is just for fun, you know. We are family," my mother-in-law said, trying to downplay the situation. "Forgive us, okay?" my mother-in-law said with a strange smile. "Family? Don't make me laugh," I replied. "I've studied acting as my job, and you think you can fool me with such poor acting? I know very well that you don't like me. Do you really think I'll forgive you now? Keep dreaming." As I spoke, I showed them the divorce papers. My mother-in-law and Luke panicked, clearly surprised that I was considering a divorce. I played the recording I had made earlier and said, "Would you rather go to the police or get a divorce?" Luke and I divorced without any arguments. I also demanded alimony due to his affair. When Luke struggled to pay, his lover left him. The way Luke treated me became a topic of gossip at his workplace, so he had no choice but to resign. My ex-mother-in-law tried to prevent me from returning to the stage. However, one of the troupe members saw her waiting for me at the back entrance and reported her to the police. Despite my warnings, she continued trying to sabotage my performances. Eventually, I had to get a restraining order against her. My ex-husband is still unemployed, and his mother's arrest has made them a neighborhood spectacle. They've been living a difficult life, trying to stay out of sight. I'm happy to be back on stage, which I love. It's where I feel most at ease. I'm not saying I'll never get married again, but for now, I'm content with my work and my life as an actress. Thank you for watching until the end. Please subscribe to our channel if you enjoyed this story. See you in the next video. I'm a 23-year-old woman who lives with my family in my grandparents' house outside the city. Dad works far away, and Mom enjoyed having her folks around to help with me. Sadly, Mom died of cancer 12 years ago. Dad had to keep working, so I stayed with my grandparents. He always makes time for me when he's home. I miss Mom a lot, but overall, life's been okay. When Dad was home, he'd stay in their old room, or we'd go on trips together. Sadly, my grandparents passed away in the last few years. Mom was an only child, and so am I. Her life insurance went to Dad, who used it to fix up the house. They never made them pay rent. It's a bit messy, sorry. Anyway, I'm the only one in my grandma's will, so I got the money, the house, and Grandpa's truck. Dad started dating a few years after Mom died. He never brought anyone home until now. She's young and pretty, with 2 little kids. Dad talked to me about it and asked if they could move in. Since we have plenty of space, I said yes. It's been about 6 months, and now she's pregnant. Dad proposed to her, and I'm happy for him. He's a great dad. But he's not great at talking things out. My soon-to-be stepmom has started pressuring me to move out because they'll need my room for the baby. I think she wants her mom to move in and help out. Dad never mentioned that the house is actually mine, So when he came home last weekend, we had a serious talk. The stepkids have been staying in my grandparents' old room. I have my own room with a big closet and bathroom that Dad added, and he has another big room with a bathroom. She suggested I move to the city to finish school and offer me her apartment at a reduced rate. I waited for Dad to tell her the truth, but he didn't, so I did. I explained that the house is mine and I won't give up my room. I also mentioned that Dad has plenty of savings and could buy them a house, especially if they sold her apartment and used it for a down payment. Now she's upset with me for suggesting Dad use his retirement money, and she doesn't want to sell her apartment because she thinks the market will keep going up and wants to build equity. I made it clear that they should move out before the baby arrives. Am I being unreasonable? Well, tough luck. If you're going to be with a much younger woman, be prepared to support your future children and all that comes with it, instead of trying to save for retirement. It seems like his new partner might have thought he was older and richer, hoping to get more from him, but that idea fell apart when she realized he didn't own the house. It's pretty audacious to ask you to leave but then offer her old place at a discount. So no, OP, you're not in the wrong here. Wow, your dad's really chosen someone special. Even without knowing the house was yours, trying to kick you out to make room for her baby, probably without even talking to your dad first, is pretty thoughtless. It's also pretty unreasonable to expect him to buy a house but not be willing to sell her place to help out. And if he can't stand up to her about it, he's in for a tough time. But that's not your problem. Your dad's a grown-up who's responsible for his own choices. You didn't leave them with no options. She wanted a place without you, and now she can have it. Problem solved. They can make some compromises and find a good living situation. Your stepmom and dad are trying to push you out of your own home, where you've let them and the kids stay for free. It might be a good idea to talk to a lawyer soon. Getting rid of them legally might be tougher than you think. In many places, someone who's been staying with you can become a legal tenant, even if they haven't been paying rent. Story 2. I'm a 30-year-old woman with a young daughter named Lily. My brother James, 32, recently got married to Brittany, who's 26. Before they got together, I knew Brittany casually, but we weren't close. James and I, however, are really tight. When James proposed to Brittany and they started planning the wedding, they made it clear that Lily and I would be involved. They even said Lily would be a flower girl and I would be the maid of honor. But a few weeks before the wedding, Brittany came to talk to me. She said her family had concerns about having kids at the ceremony, so they decided to make it adults only. However, Lily was still invited to the reception. So I said something like, "Sure, it's your big day. I'll do whatever James wants." Then came the rehearsal. Everything was going smoothly until Brittany's 3 young nieces trotted in as junior bridesmaids. I was puzzled and a bit irritated, but I brushed it off. Later, James took me aside and confessed that Brittany was worried Lily might cause a scene and ruin the wedding, hence the fib about it being child-free. I was hurt and upset that they thought that about my daughter, but I kept my cool. I had already made arrangements for a friend to look after Lily during the ceremony and join us later for the reception. James acknowledged my feelings and disagreed with Lily not being invited. On the wedding day, Brittany asked why Lily wasn't there while we were getting ready. I explained she was with a friend and would join us later. Brittany insisted on calling to bring Lily for the photos, fearing people would wonder why she was missing, and it would reflect poorly on her. I told her she could call, but my friend was aware of the plan and wouldn't come until I asked her to. Brittany called James, hoping he'd persuade me to change my mind, but he understood the arrangement and didn't see any issue with it. She then asked what to say if people noticed Lily's absence in the photos. I suggested she explain that Lily wasn't invited due to concerns about tantrums. That didn't sit well with her, and she called me a name and accused me of being too sensitive. The rest of the wedding was uncomfortable, to say the least, with other drama going on within the party unrelated to our situation. James shared the wedding photos with our family group chats, and now extended family members are asking why Lily isn't in any of them. I've explained what happened, and while my mom supports me, my aunts and uncles think I overreacted. Do you think I'm the one at fault here? What a mess. But honestly, I don't think I am. Why should your daughter be in the pictures if she wasn't invited? But I'm curious, why is your family so worried about her having a tantrum? Is this something that happens often? No, tantrums aren't typical for her. It's really out of character. Originally, I was just a bridesmaid, but some drama led Brittany to make me the maid of honor. The bride and groom made it clear it was their decision who was invited. Lying to you about it was really unfair. They don't have an excuse there. They're trying to make it seem like kids were welcome when Lily was actually excluded. It's their big day, and that should be respected. But it doesn't mean using your daughter for photos or misleading the family about her being invited. Exactly, Brittany got what she wanted. Lily wasn't at the ceremony but was at the reception. Sometimes we need to be careful what we wish for. The photos tell the story perfectly, and when people ask, make sure to mention how Brittany lied about the wedding being child-free. Story 3. I'm a 25-year-old woman married to my 27-year-old husband, and I've been hearing nonstop about this from my in-laws. My husband has a younger sister, Alice, who's 22, and in my opinion, she can be quite difficult. Alice had some health issues as a child, but she managed to overcome them. However, her parents were extremely lenient with her, to the point where she couldn't be corrected without it turning into a big deal. She's lost several jobs because of this, and she doesn't have many friends. She always needs to be the center of attention. So on my other sister-in-law's birthday, their parents bought Alice a gift just to avoid her getting jealous. As for me, I'm an only child, and my best friend, Marie, is like a sister to me. We've been inseparable since 3rd grade, bonding instantly because we were both only children. We're fiercely protective of each other. When my husband and I decided to have a summer wedding, I was surprised to see Alice show up wearing a lacy white dress. I might have believed you if you said she ordered it from a wedding catalog. Between the ceremony and the main reception, there was a cocktail hour. I started getting annoyed because so many people kept asking me about Alice. They mistook her for my husband's ex instead of his sister. I could see that Marie was getting upset too. She walked over to my husband's family and gave them a piece of her mind. On her way back, she tripped and spilled her glass of red wine near Alice. Alice dashed to the bathroom, followed by my mother-in-law, while my father-in-law came over demanding that Marie leave. I refused, explaining that Marie is a lightweight and it was just an accident. My husband supported me, pointing out that Marie's slim build means she can't handle as much alcohol. But we promised to make sure she sobered up before the reception. At the reception, Alice looked stunning in a beautiful green dress, and Marie miraculously felt better. My in-laws haven't stopped talking about the incident, but I find it hard to feel guilty, even though I know it wasn't an accident. You're definitely not in the wrong, and your best friend is amazing. That's true friendship. Don't let your in-laws make you feel bad or guilty. They need to stop coddling Alice and move on from this childish behavior. Maybe it's time to have a frank conversation with them and tell them to grow up. It's great that your husband stood by you. Another approach could have been for him to talk to his sister directly and tell her she needs to change her behavior. I get why he might hesitate, but standing up to his family would show his wife that he's got her back and they're a team. He probably didn't want his wedding day to turn into a scene with his sister throwing a fit in front of everyone. Your in-laws might have enabled her behavior, and your friend was just trying to fix the white dress situation. It's common knowledge not to wear white to a wedding. And since Alice had a backup dress, what's the big deal? And if she ever finds someone to marry her, just wait for the chance to accidentally announce your pregnancy at her wedding. It seems like some people just can't stand to see others shine. My sister-in-law is quite the character. I once saw her shed tears because she didn't get a turkey leg at Thanksgiving dinner when she was just 20. Now, as I'm preparing for my own wedding in 3 months, I've sent out the invitations with clear instructions. Avoid wearing white, for obvious reasons, and stick to emerald green for the bridesmaids' dresses. I've also requested RSVPs by a certain date, as the reception dinner is quite pricey and I don't want to pay for no-shows. Other than that, guests can wear whatever they like. Kids and families are welcome, and I'm not too fussed about attire, except for those specific colors. Just to give you some background, my sister-in-law is my fiance's sister. While we're not super close, we have an okay relationship, we don't hate each other, and we get along fine. During my fiance's birthday bash, some friends and I got to talking about the wedding plans. They remarked on how laid back I seemed about the rules and how refreshing it was not to feel like they were walking on eggshells. I explained that I just wanted everyone to have a good time, so I didn't want to impose too many restrictions. Later, the girlfriend of one of my fiance's friends showed me the dress she was considering for our wedding and asked for my opinion on whether it was appropriate or did she steal the spotlight. It was a bold yellow number, but I genuinely liked it and encouraged her to wear it. I assured her that as the bride, it's not easy to outshine me, and even if someone did, it wouldn't bother me too much. I didn't mean any harm by it, but my sister-in-law took offense and called me pretentious. She was upset because she had strict rules at her own wedding, like no kids and a strict dress code, and we followed them without complaint. I never meant to upset her. I was simply explaining my own wedding plans and the reasoning behind them. But she accused me of subtly undermining her and called me a snake, insisting that if I had something to say, I should say it to her face. Then she stormed out with her husband. My mother-in-law agreed that my sister-in-law overreacted, but she also said I shouldn't have flaunted my laid-back approach, as it may have made her feel bad about her own wedding choices. However, my fiancé and I didn't do anything wrong, and eventually my sister-in-law will have to move on. Am I in the wrong here? Definitely not. It seems like she's internalizing her own issues and projecting them onto me. She might also be jealous that I'm taking a more relaxed approach to my wedding planning. I won't apologize to her. She's the one being dramatic. It's like the saying goes, some people think the world revolves around them. But in this case, it's my sister-in-law. I can't control how she reacts or make her see that it's not about her. On a lighter note, it's quite impressive how she managed to keep her bridezilla tendencies even when it's someone else's wedding. Maybe her strict wedding rules were meant to prevent someone else from stealing her thunder. But in the end, it's my day, and I'm going to do it my way. Thank you for the congratulations, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic wedding. We had a new colleague, Christina, join our team, a friendly woman in her late 30s who's married with kids. We had several chats before becoming close. But one day, while she was sitting, her cleavage became more noticeable. The office atmosphere grew awkward, and some of the guys started avoiding eye contact. It was a minor issue, but it kept happening. A couple of my male coworkers confided in me about feeling uncomfortable with Christina's attire. Being more of a tomboy, they felt at ease discussing it with me. They mentioned feeling uneasy encountering a similar situation to the one I described. I couldn't help but notice that all of Christina's tops seemed designed to show cleavage. The next day, I casually mentioned to her how her cleavage was on display. She didn't respond, just nodded. So I decided to ask Christina if she intentionally chose clothes that accentuated her cleavage. She seemed offended and asked if there was a problem. I expressed that it made me feel uncomfortable if that was the case, especially in a professional setting with male colleagues around. She became upset and questioned why it was any of my business what she wore. I clarified that she could wear whatever she wanted, but some colleagues felt uneasy being exposed to such attire at work. She retorted that it wasn't my business and suggested that those who had issues with her clothing should confront her directly instead of hiding behind me. We argued, and while some female coworkers agreed with me, they also mentioned that I could have worded my concerns more tactfully. Christina started avoiding some of us, which seemed unprofessional since part of our job involves interacting with each other. When I tried to approach her to discuss the situation, it led to another argument. She threatened to involve the administrators if I persisted, but my intention was simply to address the issue and find a resolution. Do you think I overstepped by saying that to her? Those male colleagues must be thrilled with your behavior, huh? You're trying to set yourself apart from other women to gain their approval, aren't you? But let's be clear, her cleavage is none of your concern, okay? It's her choice how she dresses. What you and the guys are doing is body shaming. If I were her, I'd take this to HR. If the men are uncomfortable, maybe they need a reminder about self-control. Shame on you for getting involved. You're definitely in the wrong here. Being a woman doesn't give you the right to dictate how your coworkers dress. You're not her boss, and you're not enforcing a dress code violation. You're just trying to impose your own standards on her. Whether she's married with kids or not is irrelevant. Focus on your own work, and if coworkers try to gossip, keep it to yourself. When I was around 8 years old, I accidentally broke a vase that meant a lot to my stepmom. She never really seemed to like me much, and she gave my dad an ultimatum. It's either her or me. I was sure my dad would choose me because we were really close, but that night he said I was going to stay at Grandma's. I couldn't believe it until I actually got there, and he left. That moment changed something inside me. He called me every day and tried to visit as much as he could, but I couldn't pretend to be happy because I wasn't home. I stopped pretending pretty quickly. Looking back, I realized I acted like I didn't feel anything towards him. No anger or sadness, just numbness. Sometimes I overheard my dad complaining to Grandma about how I had changed. When I was 9, I told my mom I wanted to live with her all the time because I couldn't stand talking to my dad or seeing him anymore. Even though her apartment was small, she agreed. Honestly, I slept in her bed until I moved in with my fiancé. But I didn't mind because she's my mom, and it was better than being alone in my own room with him around. My mom and I got really close, and she signed me up for after-school activities so I could avoid my dad, and eventually, we just stopped talking to each other. I'm grateful for it because it meant I didn't have to be around him. A few years ago, my stepmom had a baby, and everyone was celebrating. But I was glad I wasn't there and hadn't even met the kid yet. I only saw him on special occasions or when they visited Grandma's house when I happened to be there. My fiancé proposed to me recently in a low-key way, and I only told a few family members about it. Now even Grandma knows how little I talk to my dad and how I keep him out of the loop. So it was a shock when my dad called me, inviting me to a family dinner to meet my fiancé and my new baby brother. I made up an excuse because I wasn't interested. Turns out Grandma spilled the beans, and I got angry with her for telling my dad about my engagement. Then my dad texted me, scolding me for taking my issues out on Grandma. I hate to admit it, but he was right about that. He sent me to Grandma's because he couldn't deal with me, and now he wants us to play happy family? Not happening. All I need to tell him is that my fiancé and I, congratulations by the way, have no interest in having dinner with a man who chose his wife over his own child because of a broken vase. And let's not even get started on how my stepmom got away with giving such an ultimatum in the first place. He's reaping what he sowed, no doubt about it. Speaking as a father myself, there's no way I'd ever prioritize a girlfriend over my own child, especially not for something as trivial as a vase. I'd probably burst out laughing if she ever tried to give me an ultimatum like that. It seems like both dad and stepmom are a match made in heaven, if you ask me. Honestly, I'd be tempted to send them a Goodwill vase with a sarcastic note like, "Since you missed the wedding, here's a vase you can walk down the aisle anytime you want." Or maybe even a photo of the vase dressed up like a bride. If the OP is Jewish, perhaps she and her fiancé could film themselves smashing vases in a wedding-style video. Oh, but why not send a vase to your dad and stepmom to congratulate them on the new baby, along with a card? You could write something like, "Hope the new baby doesn't break anything too precious. Grandma's not getting any younger raising your kids." Or even, "The day you chose your wife over your own child was the day I stopped being your daughter. Please refrain from contacting me as I have no interest in maintaining a relationship with you." It's powerful and eloquent. And OP, don't forget to apologize to your grandma, but make it clear that you'll have to limit what you share with her if she continues to pass information along to your father. I have 2 sons who are in their preteen years from my previous relationship. My ex and I split up because of various issues, one of which was Emily, a woman he worked closely with for years. They became very close, and she often made remarks to me about how my ex deserved someone better than me and accused me of trying to tear his family apart. Sometimes she even pretended to be his wife at work events, which my ex would just brush off. Besides, he wasn't great at handling finances and other responsibilities. After we separated, my ex officially started dating Emily, which wasn't surprising to me at all. Emily became even more hostile when she realized that my ex's family still liked me and continued to include me in their gatherings, especially when she noticed that my sons weren't thrilled about the situation. She saw herself as their dad's new girlfriend. Emily went as far as to insult my ex's mom for praising me as the best mom during a family dinner. The judge warned my ex about using Emily for custody exchanges and dealing with our boys' issues. She had confronted me multiple times during exchanges, showing hostility and even saying things that could be seen as trying to turn the kids against me. Despite the warning, my ex continued to let her handle things, and he was fined for disobeying the judge's orders. He was told that if it happened again, custody arrangements would be changed. Lately, there's been more attention directed towards me. Emily, unable to have children of her own, wants the boys to see her as a mother figure. They came to me for guidance, but I refused, stating that Emily wasn't their mother and I wouldn't endorse it after the years of verbal abuse from her. During an awards night at school in June, Emily insisted the boys take photos with her for the school newsletter. But they refused, stating she wasn't their mom. My ex scolded them, but I stayed silent. When X and Emily criticized me for not supporting them and allowing disrespect, I defended the boys, stating that what they said wasn't disrespectful. They accused me of being a bad parent and teaching the kids to disrespect women, but I stood my ground. So am I the one in the wrong here? Definitely not. They were just stating the truth, and it's pretty amusing how they're trying to enforce respect while being disrespectful themselves. Should I consider seeking a modification of custody based on their behavior? Because honestly, your boy's well-being is at risk with these two. She's not their mom, and they're not replacements just because she can't have kids of her own. They're children, and if they don't ease off, they'll only push them away and damage their relationship permanently. What happens when nobody's around to protect them at his place? Will your ex prioritize your sons or his new wife? Let's face it, they were emotionally involved at least. How blind are Emily and your ex? This is exactly how most kids feel about their dad's new partner. They're never going to see her as their mom. And when she said she wasn't asking but ordering them, their response was spot on. She's not their mother, so she can't give them orders like that. It's a fact that Emily isn't their mom. And by being hostile towards their actual mother, she's not going to earn any motherly role in their lives. Your ex is making a huge mistake. He's letting his wife jeopardize his relationship with his own kids. Someone needs to make him see that. Let him know that you'll only make parenting decisions together, and she won't be involved in any motherly capacity. If she wants kids, they can adopt, because she's not getting yours. Story 2. I'm a father of 2 daughters, Laura, who's 30, and Sarah, who's 19. They have a significant age gap of 10 years because my wife had fertility issues. Laura has achieved a PhD in psychology, and my wife and I couldn't be prouder of her accomplishments. However, Laura maintains very limited contact with us, largely due to her upbringing. I must confess that my wife and I were quite strict with her. When Laura was entering high school, she started to distance herself from us and often avoided spending time with the family. Eventually, we discovered from her counselor that Laura resented us for how we treated her when Sarah was born. Reflecting on our past actions, my wife and I decided to raise Sarah differently. We made a conscious effort to be more encouraging and supportive whenever Sarah faced challenges, aiming to provide her with a more positive upbringing. Unfortunately, this led to resentment from Laura, who felt that Sarah had a much easier childhood compared to her. As Sarah entered high school, we encountered behavioral issues such as disrespect and dishonesty, which caught us off guard. Despite this, we chose not to intervene significantly, fearing that Sarah would come to resent us as Laura did. As both girls excelled academically, we held on to the hope that everything would turn out fine. However, Sarah's behavior worsened during her final year of high school. Despite the escalating problems, we hesitated to take action, fearing that intervening would only strain our relationship with Sarah further. Fast forward to the present, Sarah is 19 and attending university, while Laura is enjoying financial success in her career. Recently, Sarah found herself in trouble after attempting to flirt with one of her professors and sending inappropriate pictures. Fed up with her behavior, my wife and I confronted her about her actions, expressing our disappointment and frustration. In the days that followed, I often found myself comparing Sarah's behavior to Laura's successes, highlighting Laura's respectfulness and achievements. One day, I even mentioned to Sarah that perhaps I should have raised her more like Laura. This comment struck a nerve, and Sarah lashed out. She accused me of mistreating Laura during her childhood, expressed her indifference toward my wife and me, and accused me of favoritism toward Laura. Sarah also revealed that her resentment and disrespectful behavior toward us stemmed from reading a journal that Laura had given her, where Laura had written about the punishments she received from us during her high school years. Story 3. When I was around 8 years old, I accidentally broke a vase that meant a lot to my stepmom. It seemed like she never really liked me, and she gave my dad an ultimatum. It's her or me. I thought my dad would pick me because we were so close. But that night he said I was going to stay at Grandma's. I couldn't believe it until I got there, and he left. That moment changed something inside me. He called every day and tried to visit often, but I couldn't pretend to be happy because I wasn't home. I stopped pretending quickly, and looking back, I realized I acted numb to him, not angry or sad, just emotionless. Sometimes I overheard him complaining to Grandma about how I had changed. When I turned 9, I told my mom I wanted to live with her full-time because I couldn't stand talking to my dad or seeing him anymore. Despite her tiny apartment, she agreed. I slept in her bed until I moved in with my fiancé. But I didn't mind because she's my mom, and it was better than dealing with him every day. My mom and I grew incredibly close, and she kept me busy with after-school activities to avoid my dad, until contact eventually faded away. I'm grateful for it because I didn't have to endure being around him. A few years back, my stepmom gave birth, and there was a big celebration. I was relieved to be nowhere in sight and hadn't even met the kid yet. I'd only caught glimpses of him on birthdays or when they visited grandma's house while I was there. About a week ago, my fiancé proposed to me in a low-key manner, and I shared the news with my mom, uncle, mom's cousin, and grandma. Now, grandma knows how little I communicate with my dad and how I keep him out of the loop. So it was quite unexpected when my dad called, inviting me to a family dinner to introduce my fiancé and meet my new baby brother. I made up an excuse because I wasn't interested. Grandma was the one who spilled the beans, and I ended up getting mad at her, even yelling for telling my dad about my upcoming marriage. Not long ago, I received a text from my dad chastising me for involving grandma in my issues with him. As much as I hate to admit it, he was right about that. So he sent me packing to grandma's because he couldn't be bothered, and now he wants to pretend everything is fine. No way. All I need to say is that my fiancé and I, thanks for the congrats, have no desire to have dinner with a man who chose his wife over his child because of a broken vase. And let's not even start on how stepmom got away with issuing such an ultimatum in the first place. He's reaping what he sowed, no doubt about it. Speaking as a father myself, there's no way I'd ever prioritize a girlfriend over my own child, especially not for something as trivial as a vase. I'd probably burst out laughing if she ever tried to give me an ultimatum like that. It seems like both dad and stepmom are a match made in heaven, if you ask me. Honestly, I'd be tempted to send them a goodwill vase with a sarcastic note like, "Since you missed the wedding, here's a vase you can walk down the aisle anytime you want." Or maybe even a photo of the vase dressed up like a bride. If the OP is Jewish, perhaps she and her fiancé could film themselves smashing vases in a wedding-style video. OP, why not send a vase to your dad and stepmom to congratulate them on the new baby, along with a card? You could write something like, "Hope the new baby doesn't break anything too precious. Grandma's not getting any younger raising your kids." Or even, "The day you chose your wife over your own child was the day I stopped being your daughter. Please refrain from contacting me as I have no interest in maintaining a relationship with you." It's powerful and eloquent. And OP, don't forget to apologize to your grandma, but make it clear that you'll have to limit what you share with her if she continues to pass information along to your father. I have 2 sons with my ex, both in their tween years. Our relationship ended due to various issues, one of which was Emily, a colleague my ex became close to. She often belittled me, claiming my ex deserved better and that I was trying to break up their family. On multiple occasions, she even pretended to be his wife at work events, which my ex found amusing. Additionally, he struggled with financial management and other responsibilities. After our breakup, he officially started dating Emily, which didn't surprise me. Emily's hostility escalated when she realized my ex's family still respected me and included me in gatherings, despite my boys not being entirely happy about her presence as their dad's new girlfriend. She even insulted my ex's mom for praising me as the best mom during a family dinner. The situation worsened when the judge warned my ex about using Emily to handle custody exchanges and issues. Emily had confronted me several times in front of our children, showing hostility and making remarks that could be seen as attempting to alienate me as a parent. Despite the judge's warning, my ex continued this behavior, leading to fines for violating court orders. He was warned that if it happened again, custody arrangements would be revised. Lately, there's been a rise in tension directed toward me. Emily, unable to have children, desires the boys to see her as a mother figure. I sought my assistance, but I declined, asserting that Emily isn't their mother, and I won't encourage them to view her as such after the years of verbal abuse from her. During an award ceremony at school in June, the boys were asked by Emily to join her in photos for the school newsletter. They declined, stating she wasn't their mom, so she couldn't make such requests. Despite their refusal, my ex reprimanded the boys, while I remained silent. When confronted about not supporting them, I defended the boys, explaining that their response wasn't disrespectful. However, my ex and Emily insisted I should have intervened and not allowed such perceived disrespect. They accused me of being a bad parent, claiming I shouldn't have allowed the boys to act that way, and accused me of teaching them to disrespect women. So here I am, wondering if I'm the one at fault. No, you're not. They simply stated the truth. It's also quite amusing how they're insistent on avoiding disrespect. But does this behavior warrant revisiting custody arrangements in your favor? Frankly, the mental well-being of your boys is at stake with these two. She isn't their mother, and are not substitutes because she has fertility issues. They're just kids, and if they don't back off, they'll only alienate them and damage their relationship irreparably. What happens behind closed doors at his place when no one's there to protect them? Would your ex prioritize your sons or his new wife? Let's not ignore the emotional affair they had, at the very least. How blind can Emily and your ex be? This is precisely how most kids feel about their dad's new partner, and they're unlikely to accept her as their mom. As for her assertion that she wasn't asking, in essence, she was commanding them, their response was appropriate. She's not their mother, so she can't dictate to them that way. Emily isn't their mother. That's a fact. By being hostile to their mother, she won't play a maternal role in their lives. Your ex is making a mistake. He's allowing his wife to jeopardize his relationship with his own kids. You need to make that clear to him. Tell him that you'll only make parental decisions with him, and none will involve her as a mother. If she wants kids, they better adopt because she's not getting yours. Story 4. I'm a 55-year-old father with 2 daughters, Laura, age 30, and Sarah, age 19. There's a significant 10-year age gap between them due to my wife's fertility issues, which is important to note. Laura has achieved a PhD in psychology, and my wife and I couldn't be prouder of her accomplishments. However, Laura maintains minimal contact with us, largely due to her upbringing. I must confess that my wife and I were particularly strict with Laura. As she entered high school, she began to distance herself from us, often refusing to spend time with the family. It wasn't long before we discovered through her counselor that Laura harbored resentment towards us for how we treated her when Sarah was born. Reflecting on our past mistakes, my wife and I made a conscious decision to raise Sarah differently. We aimed to provide her with encouragement and support, unlike the treatment Laura received. Despite our efforts, Sarah's teenage years were not without challenges. Issues such as disrespect and dishonesty arose during her high school years, leaving us perplexed as to their origins. Nevertheless, we tolerated her behavior, fearing that intervening would only result in her resenting us, similar to Laura. Both Laura and Sarah excelled academically, leading us to believe that we were on the right track. However, Sarah's behavior deteriorated during her final year of high school, yet we hesitated to take action, fearing that she would come to despise us as Laura did. Fast forward to the present, Sarah is 19 years old and attending university, while Laura enjoys financial success in her career. Recently, Sarah found herself in trouble after attempting to flirt with one of her professors and sending him inappropriate pictures. Fed up with her behavior, my wife and I decided it was time to confront her. We expressed our disappointment and frustration, raising our voices in the process. In the days that followed, I frequently reminded Sarah of Laura's accomplishments and exemplary behavior. At one point, I even suggested that I should have raised her in the same manner as Laura. This comment sparked a strong reaction from Sarah. She lashed out, accusing me of mistreating Laura during her childhood and showing favoritism towards her. She expressed her disregard for my wife and me, claiming that my remarks had deeply hurt her. Additionally, she confessed that she had been acting rudely towards us after reading the journal that Laura had written during high school. In the journal, Laura detailed how we used to discipline her, which evidently affected Sarah's perception of our parenting. When I was little, my mom met my sister's dad. He told her straight away that I wouldn't matter much to him because I wasn't his kid. Mom was okay with that. They moved in together soon after meeting, and he never really paid attention to me. I was just there when they had my sister Katie. They were married by then, and Katie was always his favorite. Katie and I didn't really get along. Sometimes we were okay, but I'd back off when she started praising her dad and saying how lucky we were to have him. Even after her dad told her I wasn't his kid and she was the only one who mattered to him, she'd still talk about him as if he was amazing to both of us. Our mom always told me I had to accept having a different dad than Katie and be okay with it. She said kids can have different parents and still be close siblings. Katie always got everything, and she often reminded me of that. She'd ask why I didn't have nice clothes, or why I didn't eat with them, or why I didn't join them for outings with Dad. She'd tell me to speak up for myself. Once, she pestered me all day to ask Dad for new clothes, so I did just to get her off my back. But Dad didn't understand why I was asking him for anything, and that was the end of it. Katie said I gave up too easily. When Mom got sick when I was a teenager, I decided to tell Katie everything, hoping she'd understand. But she insisted her dad was still my dad because he raised me, and I should treat him like my dad. She brushed off everything I said, but she was just a kid, so I get it. I moved out just before turning 18, and then Mom died. It wasn't surprising that I wasn't welcome at the funeral. Katie wanted me there, but her dad made it clear it wasn't my place. Honestly, I didn't feel sad about missing the funeral because I had a strained relationship with Mom. 6 years later, Katie's dad got diagnosed with a terminal illness because he hadn't taken care of himself. I'm 24 now, and Katie's 20. She called me when they got the news, saying we needed to help take care of him. I told Katie I wouldn't do it. She said we couldn't abandon him, that we owed him better than leaving him alone. But I disagreed. I felt like I didn't owe him anything. He never cared for me and even criticized me for not being his kid. I wasn't going to comfort him in his final months. Katie said she couldn't handle it alone. I suggested she let others help her, but I wasn't going to care for someone who treated me poorly when I had no say in the matter. She called me selfish, saying she needed my help because I was all she had. Am I wrong? No, you're not wrong. Katie should know better now, even if she was just a kid before. But your mom made the mistake by marrying this man who didn't accept you. Your mom shouldn't have let someone into her life who didn't care for you. He took away your childhood, and you don't owe him anything. You don't owe your mom anything either. Katie seems self-centered and selfish. Your stepfather mistreated you, and your mom let it happen. It's sad that your mom prioritized finding a husband over your well-being. That part of your life is over now, so don't let Katie drag you back. He made it clear he wasn't your dad, and Katie living in her own world doesn't change that truth. Consider cutting her out of your life for good. She comes across as a spoiled favorite child lacking empathy, maybe even finding satisfaction in your suffering. It's best to disengage and move on. I became a mom 18 weeks ago, but I kept my pregnancy mostly secret, only sharing the news with my husband's parents and my sister. The announcement didn't sit well with my dad, his wife, or my half-sister. For those wondering why I kept it from them, there are 2 reasons. A few years ago, I believed I was pregnant but experienced a loss. I had openly shared the positive test, and when the truth came out, my dad's wife became overbearing. She believed I needed her as a mother figure since she married my dad after our mom passed away when my sister and I were young. However, she was too intrusive. Even after everything I went through, she wouldn't respect my need for space, and my husband had to ask her to leave our home. Another reason is that my sister has 2 kids. During both pregnancies, our dad's wife constantly pressured her about needing her as a mother figure. She insisted on being there for my sister during her pregnancy and talked about how it would strengthen their bond and make my sister appreciate her more. My sister ended up resenting her because of this. While neither of us were ever big fans of hers, my sister grew to despise her because she was convinced she would replace our mom by being there for her during pregnancy. She even dismissed my sister's feelings of missing our mom, saying pregnancy made women irrational and there was no reason to miss a ghost. Since then, my sister has refused to let our dad's wife be called grandma by her kids. All of this influenced my decision to keep quiet about my pregnancy when it happened. I don't live near my dad anymore, so I just stayed away. I also knew it would hurt their feelings, but I honestly didn't care. My dad was furious, and his wife and my half-sister sent me messages accusing me of being cruel and unfair, saying I robbed them of the excitement and tainted the whole experience. They both emphasized how important it was for Dad's wife to become a grandma for the 3rd time, especially since her other grandkids would never call her grandma. And they called me selfish for not considering her joy. Am I the one at fault here? Absolutely not. Your stepmother seems overly controlling. You did what was best for yourself, your husband, and your child. Your pregnancy and birth were about your own family, not about meeting their expectations. You can't force relationships to be close. They either naturally develop or they don't. Step-parents who try to replace a deceased parent usually fail to create the bonds they hope for. Did she expect your baby to start calling her grandma as soon as it was born? She's not really your stepmother. She's just your dad's second wife. It seems like they need a reality check to understand that their idealized family fantasy isn't real and won't come true. They're still upset because they're holding onto their fantasy and feel hurt when it's not fulfilled. The only way to get them to respect your boundaries is for them to accept reality as it is. You're doing the right thing by protecting your family and setting boundaries. Congratulations on your new baby, sending you lots of peaceful baby vibes. My husband's sister moved in with us after a big argument about the baby's name. They're expecting a baby, and she's 7 months along. She's known to be particular about food and refuses to eat what we normally cook. We've been catering to her by preparing her favorite dishes, which unfortunately I can't eat due to allergies. So every evening, I have to figure out what to eat since she only wants food that I'm allergic to. Last night, my husband agreed to cook separate meals for her and us together. However, when I got home after a long day at work, I discovered that my sister-in-law had convinced him to cook only her preferred meal and cancel the one we had planned. They were eating together in the kitchen when I arrived. Apologetically, my husband explained that his sister persuaded him to eat with her and not to cook the meal I wanted for us both. I pretended it was okay and ordered food from a restaurant instead. After showering and doing some work on my laptop, I returned to the kitchen to find my order on the counter, open and mostly eaten. I turned around to see my sister-in-law standing there, admitting she couldn't resist the smell and had helped herself to the food. I lost my temper and yelled at her, demanding to know why she did that. She claimed she saved me some, but there was hardly anything left except rice and dressings. We argued, and I reached my limit. I told her to pack her things and leave first thing in the morning. She started crying, and my husband defended her, insisting that she was pregnant and eating for two. Finally, he suggested I quickly make something for myself from the fridge and let it go. But I refused, leading to a bigger argument. Am I wrong for kicking her out over this? Not at all. You don't just have a sister-in-law problem. Your husband is a big part of the issue. Your sister-in-law does sound selfish and entitled, pregnant or not, but the real issue lies with your husband prioritizing her needs over yours. How did he think it was acceptable to deny you dinner that you were expecting, especially when you couldn't even eat what she wanted? Your sister-in-law is in the wrong, but your husband is the one who needs to reassess his priorities. It's baffling how little they seem to care about you. Seriously, just toss the whole family out. Their treatment of you is unacceptable. I don't understand why your husband would agree to not cook for you. It's nonsensical. How could he be okay with that? Perhaps he could have cooked the same meal for himself and his sister and something else for you. Where do people find spouses like this? And this is the same woman who left her husband over a disagreement about baby names. Clearly, she's unbearable. Who walks out over baby names? Parenthood is stressful. I've been there with 2 kids. But seriously, if one person disagreed with a name, it was a no-go. So in your position, I wouldn't have even let her stay in the first place. I'd tell her to sort it out and go back to her own house to eat her food. Your husband and sister-in-law are being incredibly disrespectful. If I were you, I'd ask your sister-in-law's husband if you could spend a week at his place since his wife is driving you crazy. I bet both your husband and your sister-in-law would quickly resolve all their fights in Brazil. There's a saying that doesn't quite translate into English but fits perfectly here. The cure for crazy is crazier. The only winner in this situation seems to be your brother-in-law, who's getting a break from all this drama. My fiancé and I recently got engaged and chose our wedding party. My bridesmaids are my 2 closest friends, and his groomsmen are my brothers. One of them is his best friend, and the other is someone he's known for just as long. They've been like big brothers to him. My fiancé has a younger sister who's 4 years younger than him. She's a cancer survivor, and her experience has also shaped their relationship. His parents clearly favor her, showering her with excessive attention and expecting everyone else to do the same. She knows how to manipulate people by leveraging the special treatment she receives. My fiancé has admitted that he sometimes can't stand her. Whenever he refuses her requests, she guilt-trips him by bringing up her cancer or accusing him of wishing she had died. Although he's not estranged from his family, he's not particularly close to them either. He holds a lot of resentment towards his parents, blaming them for favoring his sister and neglecting him during his childhood. He felt overshadowed by her illness and then was expected to treat her like royalty. When we discussed our wedding party, my fiancé expressed his desire not to include his sister. I respected his decision, especially since, to be frank, I have no personal connection to her whatsoever. We've never spent time together or formed any sort of bond. Apparently, she and my fiancé's parents were expecting her to be asked to be a bridesmaid once they heard about our engagement. However, I hadn't planned on inviting her. I had already chosen my 2 closest friends to be bridesmaids. When his parents and sister confronted me about it, I explained that I hadn't intended to include her in the bridal party. They argued that she's family and important to my fiancé. I explained that while she may be important to him, she isn't close to me, and asking me to include her in my bridal party felt inappropriate. They called me foolish and insisted that I should try harder. They even suggested that she deserved a place in the bridal party more than anyone else, and that thinking otherwise made me seem like a bully, especially considering all she's been through. Am I wrong here? You're not wrong, but your fiancé should also step up and express that he doesn't want her in the bridal party. It's a joint decision, and both of you have the right to choose who stands beside you on your big day. It's unfair that you're shouldering all the blame for this when it's a decision you both made together. The parents are crossing boundaries here, and your fiancé should support you in setting limits with them. Consider reducing or cutting contact with them if their behavior persists. It's concerning how they tried to manipulate situations to favor his sister. If you and your fiancé have a child, they might even suggest giving her the baby because she's a cancer survivor. It's crucial to limit their involvement in wedding planning to prevent any unwanted surprises, like her showing up in the same colors as your bridesmaids or wearing a white dress to steal attention. Let your fiancé handle his family. He needs to address this with them. I, a 27-year-old woman, lived with my parents until last week. I have a dog whom I adore. She's been my best companion since I graduated from university. I'm not very social and prefer her company over most people I know. While I've had boyfriends and even a short-lived relationship that ended amicably, I'm just not interested in much beyond my work and my dog. My parents view this as a shortcoming, but I don't. My brother also resides with us. He's in high school and doesn't contribute financially. I cover about 50% of the household expenses, including groceries. I occupy the basement suite, which, while not legally rentable, suits a family member's needs according to building codes. Converting it for renting would be costly and impractical. My mom concluded that the reason I'm not actively seeking a husband is because my dog demands too much of my attention. While my pup does have some health issues, they are manageable and don't affect her quality of life significantly. Despite this, my mom gave her away while I was at work. When I returned home, my dog was gone, along with all her belongings, her toys, leash, everything. I confronted my mom, insisting she tell me where my dog was, threatening to involve the authorities and accuse them of theft if she didn't comply. I retrieved my dog from where she was being held and then returned to my parents' house to gather my belongings. Afterward, I went to stay with a friend. My dad has been reaching out, asking for money to cover expenses for the month. I reminded him that he should have considered this before allowing someone to take my dog. Unfortunately, my dad lost his job due to the current global situation, and they're struggling to cover all the household expenses without my contribution. He mentioned that they'll run out of money in 3 months without my assistance. However, I no longer trust them. My family believes I'm foolish for prioritizing my dog over them. Am I wrong? You're not wrong at all. Your parents were clearly taking advantage of you. You were paying half of everything, including what should have been market rent for a basement suite that wasn't even up to code. That's unacceptable on so many levels. And that's before they decided to get rid of your dog. They deserve to face the consequences of their actions. Whatever you decide, never give them another penny. I'm relieved that you were able to retrieve your dog and find a safe place for both of you to stay. Perhaps they can consider moving into the basement and renting out the upstairs room. Problem solved, OP. Living with people who steal from you and try to control you is unsustainable. They're solely responsible for the current situation. Everyone should pull their weight and work while you find a place far from them where you and your dog can enjoy life. Additionally, if the mother's concern is that you're not seeking a husband, does she expect you to get married and have everyone live together in your home while you continue to support them financially? Or would she expect you to move out and still contribute as if you were living there? The same issue would arise. Your parents' actions have led to this situation, and at almost 30, it's unacceptable for them to still rely on you financially. They should have considered this before betraying your trust and alienating you. It's not just about the dog.